All right, so you wanted to get a grip on, like, really influential books. And I think we both agree Machiavelli's The Prince
Oh, for sure.
definitely fits the bill.
Big time.
So this deep dive is kind of like our express lane
Yeah.
to getting those core ideas about leadership and statecraft, right?
Absolutely.
We're working with a modern translation here.
Right.
With some good background info, the translator's intro, even a map of Italy in 1500.
Oh, wow.
And we're focusing on those first 3 chapters, which are all about different types of states, how you conquer them, how you hold on to them.
And most importantly, how to not lose them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you the Machiavelli crash course.
All right.
Surprising facts, stuff you'll actually remember.
Yeah.
But without, like, drowning you in details.
Well,
Sound good.
sounds great.
So Machiavelli himself,
Yeah.
he wasn't just some armchair philosopher.
No, not at all.
This guy was a diplomat, right in the middle of it all.
44 years old.
Used to power.
Absolutely.
And then, boom, political upheaval in Florence.
Yeah.
Suddenly he's facing imprisonment, torture.
Whole 9 yards.
And the prince basically comes out of that forced downtime.
Wow.
Him thinking about his experiences.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out
Trying to understand
power, how to gain it, how to keep it.
how to not become a victim of circumstance.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And the Italy he's writing about, late 15th, early 16th century.
Not a unified country at that point.
Not even close.
Oh.
You've got these major powers all vying for territory.
Naples, the Papal States, Florence, Venice, Milan.
Constant backstabbing.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've got the smaller states,
Yeah.
always under threat.
Always getting caught in the crossfire.
Now, here's something most people don't realize.
Okay.
That French invasion of 1494,
Huge turning point.
it actually happened partly because these Italian states,
They were so busy fighting each other.
they actually invited foreign powers in. Wow.
As a strategic threat against each other.
Talk about a miscalculation.
It's wild.
Absolutely wild.
So Machiavelli's breaking down all these types of states.
He starts with the basics,
Republics, monarchies.
And then he zooms in on monarchies,
Mm-hmm.
which can be hereditary, family rule,
Classic dynasty stuff.
or they can be new.
Brand new regimes.
And those new monarchies can be entirely new or added on to existing hereditary states.
Like an expansion pack.
Yeah, exactly like that.
He calls those mixed monarchies.
Be an interesting term.
And Machiavelli says the way you get these territories matters.
Yeah, your own forces versus relying on someone else's help.
Skill versus luck.
And how those territories were ruled before.
By a prince or self-governing?
It all makes a difference in how you rule them going forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, with hereditary monarchies...
This is what Machiavelli considers the easiest to maintain.
Right, because you've got that established legitimacy.
The ruling family's been there for ages.
People are used to it. And as Machiavelli says, old complaints tend to fade away.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly.
He gives the example of the Duchy of Ferrara.
Briefly conquered.
But then returned to the same family.
Back to the status quo.
Now, mixed monarchies.
Here's where it gets tricky.
Yeah, this is where things get interesting.
And maybe a little uncomfortable.
Machiavelli says people always have these high hopes.
They think a new ruler is going to make things better.
Right. A change is going to do them good.
But when that doesn't happen...
Or even worse, things get worse.
Then you've got a recipe for rebellion.
And on top of that, you're bound to upset people.
Yeah, with your occupying army.
New policies.
New taxes.
And it's almost impossible to please everyone.
You can't satisfy those who helped you get there.
But you also need the local support to stay in power.
It's a delicate balancing act.
And Machiavelli gives us this great example.
Oh, yeah.
Louis XII in Milan.
Textbook case.
Louis takes Milan pretty easily at first.
People were hoping for improvement.
But then they felt like things got worse under French rule.
So they kicked him out.
And he manages to reconquer it.
But then he loses it again.
Which really highlights how unstable these added-on territories can be.
Absolutely.
So what's the solution?
Well, Machiavelli's got some pretty direct advice.
Yeah, he doesn't mince words.
If you're taking over a place with the same language and customs as you,
Okay.
get rid of the old ruling family.
Wow.
But keep the existing laws and taxes.
Don't rock the boat too much.
Exactly. Keep things familiar.
He points to Burgundy, Brittany, Gascony, Normandy under French rule.
Places where this approach actually worked.
But what about when the new territory is completely different?
Different language, different customs.
Foreign.
Machiavelli says in those cases,
Yeah.
the ruler should actually go live there.
Really?
Yeah, it's the best way to keep an eye on things.
Boots on the ground.
See trouble brewing early.
Exactly.
And he also suggests setting up colonies.
in key locations, kind of like little outposts of your power.
Yeah, and it's relatively cheap.
Right.
It only affects a small, displaced group.
Whereas a huge occupying army.
Oh, that's just asking for trouble.
Expensive.
Makes everyone resent you.
Creates more problems than it solves.
Exactly.
Now, what about dealing with neighboring powers?
In these newly acquired territories.
Yeah. How do you navigate that minefield?
Well, Machiavelli's got a whole strategy for that, too.
Okay.
He says you need to become the protector of the weaker neighbors.
Okay.
Undermine the stronger ones.
Weaken the competition.
And prevent any other powerful outsiders.
Like rival empires.
From gaining a foothold.
So you're basically creating a buffer zone.
Yeah, and Machiavelli uses the Romans in Greece as a model for this.
Classic Roman strategy.
They set up colonies, supported the weak, weakened the strong, and kept out foreign interference.
And it worked.
Very effectively.
And he stresses, this idea of early intervention.
Like dealing with an illness.
Catch it early.
When it's still treatable.
Before it becomes a bigger problem.
Exactly. Foresight is key.
And this all brings us back to Louis XII.
And his mistakes in Italy.
Right. Machiavelli argues he basically did everything wrong.
He ignored all these principles.
Backed the Pope's land grab.
Which weakened his own position.
Let the King of Spain into Naples.
Creating a huge rival.
Didn't live in his conquered territories.
Didn't establish enough colonies.
Eliminated the weaker state.
Which inadvertently strengthened the papacy.
Talk about shooting yourself in the foot.
Absolutely.
So the big takeaway here is these first few chapters of The Prince, they really lay out Machiavelli's philosophy.
This practical, sometimes ruthless approach to power.
It's all about understanding
the specific nature of different states.
And taking decisive action.
Knowing when to be firm.
When to be cunning.
And when to, let's just say, remove obstacles.
It's pretty intense stuff.
It is, but it's also fascinating to consider how much of it still applies today.
Yeah, like how his analysis of those mixed monarchy challenges.
And his advice on managing diverse populations.
It resonates with modern political situations.
International relations.
I mean, it's like he's talking about the 21st century.
It's amazing how much his insights still hold up.
So if this has piqued your interest, I highly recommend diving into the rest of The Prince.
Oh, yeah.
Machiavelli goes on to talk about the qualities a leader should cultivate.
The use of cruelty and compassion.
The role of fortune and luck.
It's a really insightful read.
And you'll never look at politics the same way again.
That's for sure.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
See you next time.
See you then.